Hey, everybody. It is Brian Rundle, Black and White with Brian Rundle and Lana Quest. As you can see, you have just the white tonight. No black. Lana Quest is with her family tonight. She has some obligations there, and we certainly understand that. I am not live tonight. I am recording this show because, as you can see, the Boston Celtics, and my mic's in the way, but my Boston Celtics play tonight, game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. And if you know me well enough, you know there is an absolute 0% chance that I am going to miss any playoff games. I really didn't miss many of the regular season games. So I'm excited about that. But I thought maybe I would just record this show tonight by myself. Let's see how this goes. Haven't done one by myself in a long time. I used to do a podcast called Run's House. That's where I met Lana. And then we got together and we started doing this show together. But I have not done a podcast, a video podcast. I've only done just the audio podcast. So let's get right into it, as we always do. Let's start with the top story today, the Donald Trump hush money trial, as some call it. I think people say that's a little misleading when they call it hush money trial, because paying somebody quote unquote hush money is not necessarily a crime. So it sort of diminishes what is actually happening. But the defense rests up today. And let's get here to an article. By the way, if you're ever going to do a podcast and you need a nice, quick articles that pretty much just get right to the point, Axios is a great place to go to. But former President Trump's defense team rested its case Tuesday without calling him to testify in his ongoing New York hush money criminal trial. Of course, that makes news because Donald Trump the whole time, as he always does, says, I'm testifying, I want to testify, I'm going to testify. And then when it comes time to testify, he backs out like every single other time. And there's always an excuse. He says his attorneys wouldn't let him. I don't know if anybody on the planet who has even known who Donald Trump has been for just a few months would even believe that his attorneys are controlling this case. In fact, there was a witness that they called yesterday, Robert Costello. It's actually going to come up in this article, who was a witness that the defense attorneys didn't even want to call, but Donald Trump pretty much made them call him to the stand. And we'll get into that in just a minute. But final arguments are scheduled for next week. After the former president's fate will be in the hands of the jury. Trump, who has denied wrongdoing, was charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records in connection with a $130,000 hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels over an alleged sexual encounter. Trump's legal team rested their case after calling Robert Costello, an attorney who once advised Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen. So Robert Costello apparently testified in the grand jury hearing that led us to this particular case now. And from all accounts, it was a complete shit show. I mean, he went up on the stands and it was very performative. It was testimony in order to basically please the master, Donald Trump. He was huffing, he was puffing on the stand. He would, an attorney would say something and he would use the word strike that. The judge looked at him and said, I'm the only one that can say strike that. Stop huffing, stop puffing, stop sighing. And apparently Robert Costello, I don't know if he thinks he's some kind of mafia guy or tough guy, but he was glaring at the judge. The judge called him out for that. Then he was trying to stare the judge down. The judge called him out for that as well. He cleared the courtroom, cleared even the journalists there, and just really laid into Robert Costello. And a lot of people are saying that if Donald Trump had gained any momentum in this case, because I guess there was a time or two where Michael Cohen was caught lying on the stand, and they thought that that was a big win for them. Again, I take it with a grain of salt because there are a lot of people talking about this case, and you kind of wonder, sorry, I just went out. You kind of wonder, are they on the side of wanting to see a conviction, or on the side of wanting to see an acquittal? So you get kind of different opinions, but a lot of the opinions that I've heard were that Michael Cohen's testimony, even though it was a little off, and there were some moments that the defense attorney scored against him, that overall it did not overcome the overwhelming amount of evidence in this case that convicts Donald Trump. So we'll see. But a lot of people are also saying too that Robert Costello's, if they did have any momentum, that this one probably may have killed it. But of course, we're going to see. We'll see what happens in this trial. There are 34 counts, and I would be shocked if he was found not guilty on all 34 counts. So we are apparently probably going to have some sort of decision by the end of the week or next week. And we will see. I think closing arguments maybe, I think, is next Tuesday, if I read that correctly. But as this trial goes on, we have seen the Donald Trump sycophants come to the courthouse and hold press conferences before or after or in the middle of these trials and really embarrass themselves. I don't care what side you are. I'd be embarrassed. First of all, I'd be embarrassed if I were a surrogate for somebody who was deemed a rapist, somebody who basically tried to destroy democracy after Joe Biden clearly won and fairly with absolutely no evidence of wrongdoing or any evidence of stolen election. And there's another 100 other things that I can name as to why I'd be embarrassed. But to go there and speak for him, and that's basically what they're doing, because it's a ploy. Donald Trump can't say things about the judge. He can't say things about their family. He can't say things about the witnesses. So he brings these clowns out and they come and do it for him. And I think Donald Trump even kind of tried to pretend as if they're doing this on their own. Clearly they are not. I don't know how you have any sense of pride whatsoever, but these are people who just care about power. They care about the voters that they get from this clown. But we're also going to see at some point as to whether or not this strategy is going to work for them in the future. Maybe in their districts they do. But anyway, this is the B team, maybe the C or D team that was out today. There was a particular moment that I found pretty funny. Maria Salazar, I'm not familiar with her. It was her turn to talk, and she finished, and I think a reporter asked her if she can get this in Spanish. And as she moved away from the mic, another gentleman named Troy Niels, another guy I've never heard of, he moved into the mic, and it was his turn to talk. But Miss Salazar continued to talk, and just watch the reaction of all the men behind her. And we'll talk about that after the clip.
The Lord of Abraham, the Lord of Jesus, protect us, because we are in a very dark place.
And there's Christian Donald Trump Jr. behind him listening to the sermon. But as this video goes on, it gets, whether you think it's funny or uncomfortable or both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I will get
Thank you.
En español, dime. En español, yes.
Lo
que acabo de decir es que esto es un circo político. We are the largest minority in the country, the Hispanics. Los hispanos somos la minoría más importante en los Estados Unidos. Esto es un circo.
The faces of Lady Shut the Fuck Up are starting to appear.
Político que solamente se ve en Cuba, en Venezuela y en Nicaragua. Es una vergüenza que nosotros, independientemente de lo que usted piensa de Trump.
Now the white male faces are listening to this Hispanic woman go off in Spanish, and I promise you this is driving them crazy.
Si le gusta Trump, si no le gusta Trump, lo que piense de él, en realidad es que en este país no se logra.
There's the how do we get out of this look.
Una lucha política en las cortes se logra en el ballot box, en las urnas. Y por eso le estoy diciendo a los hispanos Wake up. Despiértense, que lo que está pasando es marxismo y nosotros vinimos a este país para no tener esto, sino para que
Donald Trump pretending not to want to blow up right now, telling her to shut up.
el futuro de nuestros hijos sea un futuro glorioso en un país que es el American exceptionality. La excepcionalidad
Fantastic job.
americana.
Okay, lady, now go get us some beers. That's exactly the attitude that they had in that whole video. At least that's how I saw it. If you guys saw it any differently, comment. Well, I don't know. I guess you can't comment because we're not doing it live, but comment below the video and let me know what you thought. If you thought that you agreed with me or you had a different take on that. But I saw that as basically a bunch of guys looking around saying, oh my God, how do we get out of this? And who brought her here is basically what I got out of that. But the other thing making news is that Donald Trump apparently ran an ad recently and had more language in this ad that suggested a sort of Nazi tone. There was a term called unified Reich in the ad. And of course, what do? Every single time something like this happens, you blame it on somebody else. You say, I didn't know about it. And you know, I don't know how many times we have to hear this out of Donald Trump, out of MAGA people's mouths, that they don't know, that it was an intern, that it was this. Whoops, we didn't know, or else we would have never done that. We didn't know that the conference I went to, that the guy is he's a proud Nazi and goes on his podcast and tell everybody he's a Nazi. I had no idea. I was just going there to speak to young Republicans. You know, it's that same game that we have to listen to every time, and it's boring. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that will just continue to defend it to the death. And I'm not even just talking about the people who are caught. I'm talking about the people who just fall in line for this entire cult of what is going on with this whole MAGA movement. And again, what we're all hoping for is that we can end this movement come November. Will it end completely? No, but it's a pretty good punch in the face to beat Donald Trump for a second time. And then there's no stopping the trials. I'm afraid that we may not see another trial. Now, I will also say that I've read some other people that think that this is sort of a sky is falling thing, and that at least one, maybe the two of these trials will happen before the election. So do not panic. But, you know, again, this is all future stuff. It's all speculation. But the bottom line is, and I think we all know this, anybody that's watching this podcast knows that the most important thing is to beat Donald Trump at the ballot. That's what we have to do. And anything and everything that people can go out there, and anybody that's on the fence that you're talking to, you know, you could try to talk to some MAGA people, get a sense of how deep into MAGA they are. You know, they think it's just funny. Those people are easier to convert than the people that obviously buy the flags, the t-shirts, the hats, and dress their entire fucking house up in MAGA stuff. Very bizarre behavior. But this is the ad in question that Donald Trump ran. Let's take a look at it. And at the very end, you'll see the words on the bottom right.
What happens after Donald Trump wins?
First of all, Donald Trump won't win.
What's next for America? The economy booms.
The economy is booming now. In fact, we've been over this before. Anybody that's confused about the economy, there is still a little bit of a higher inflation rate than the Federal Reserve and the rest of the country, including myself, whose personal job is affected by the interest rates in the economy. But overall, the economy, the comeback that this country has made from the devastation from COVID, and, you know, if you want to, if I'm being honest, all the jobs lost when inflation started to rise, everything that started to happen, it started to happen under Trump's watch. However, I don't blame Donald Trump for that. It doesn't matter who the president was at the time. What was happening then was going to happen to any president. And it's kind of easy to figure this out. Why? And the best way to figure this out is to understand and realize that this happened across the entire world. It did not just happen here in America, but the recovery from COVID in the United States, since Joe Biden has been president, the economy has improved better than any other country in the world by far. Everybody's jealous of how well we have recovered. We had an inflation rate at one point in 2022 of 9%. They got it down to 3% last year in just 1 year. Now, there are some things that are still, keeping this inflation high, and the Federal Reserve is still sticking to their guns on not raising the rates. And everybody's trying to figure out what exactly is the best way to get this inflation down. I personally believe, just from everything that I've read, that a lot of this is corporate greed, and a lot of the corporations that raised their prices during COVID, some of them justified because of the shortage of supplies when there was a supply chain issue. So some of that was justified, but supply chains issues apparently, leveled off, and there were no more supply chain issues. But what they continue to do? They continue to keep those high prices. And then every quarter they'd get on their corporate phone calls and their public calls, and you can listen to them, and brag about their corporate profits. And me personally, and I think every American should be in this camp, that if we are in inflationary times, it should be illegal to raise prices and make record profits. It's very similar to if there is a hurricane, and a hurricane's coming through, and they raise the prices of gasoline, they raise the price of water, and they price gouge you. In fact, the Democrats try to put together a bill and pass a bill, an anti-price gouging act, and the Republicans turned it down. So that is one thing about the economy. I know we're in the middle of this ridiculous Trump ad, but every time I hear about the economy, it drives me insane, because the economy is strong. The stock market the other day hit 40,000. Now, I will also admit, the stock market is not an indication of how well or bad the economy is doing. It does play a role, and there is a factor in it, but it's not the ultimate thing to look at and go, our economy is strong because the stock market is strong. There's very few people in the stock market, so you don't have a lot of participation in the stock market. It's either, big wigs on Wall Street, or, a lot of us do have 401ks, so that kind of plays in. But for the most part, like I said, the economy is stronger than people think. Are we where we need to be? No. One last thing on this. Target just announced that they are going to lower prices for 5,000 items in their stores. And why that is extremely important, or at least we hope it is that other companies and other stores and other places follow suit, because now it's a competitive thing. If somebody like Target is lowering their prices, others are going to be forced to lower their prices as well. And if that does indeed happen, I think you're going to see that inflation rate go down to where it is that we want to see it. But anyway, sorry about that. Let's get back to this ad.
American energy is unleashed, and an end to crushing taxes. The border is closed, and the largest deportation in history is underway. Real quick,
the end to crushing taxes. He's talking to billionaires.
No more wars.
And by the way, they're not crushing taxes already.
As we focus on home, law and order is restored. The American dream is back, and the best is yet to come. Make America great again.
There it is on the bottom. If you saw, let's go back here. If we can go to the end, it's right on the bottom right there. Again, using more of this Nazi type language. He used it when he called his political opponents vermin. And what he say, that the immigrants are poisoning the blood of the society, or whatever it is that he said in that vein. So, you know, it shocks me and it makes me sad to think that there are a lot of people that look at this and either embrace it or ignore it. And I think both of them are just as scary. Why, you know, you wouldn't look at this, you know, if it's funny is that when you call a racist, or a xenophobe, you know, they get very defensive and they're like, oh, you just use that card. You just use that card. If they truly weren't, that would bother them. They would say, well, no, there's no way I can vote for that because, I mean, we understand who Hitler is. We understand what happened to the Jewish community during Hitler's time. So that's a little too far for me. But they don't. In fact, a lot of them go out and get more flags and T-shirts and hats, which is absolutely ridiculous. And speaking of ridiculous, this is Donald Trump, the guy who has this sort of language in his ads, talking to Jewish voters, and he has a message for them.
And Jewish people that go for Biden and the Democrats, they should have their head examined. Thank you very much.
He's got a hell of a way of trying to draw in voters. He told Nikki Haley voters, basically, we don't need you, which he clearly does. But to not even say, you know, hey, I got a message for the Jewish people. There may be some out there that may not like me, or there may be some people out there, but here's what I do for you, or here's what, that's how most normal people would handle it. But he's not a normal person. And a lot of people say, well, that's why I vote for him, because he's not a normal politician. Okay, you're right. He's not a normal politician, but he's just not a normal human being either. He's a clown. He's a shit show on legs. I mean, it is just beyond unbelievable to me that anybody not only would vote for him the first time, because when people voted for him the first time, I still don't get it, because I hear people go, well, I get it because he was a new guy and he shook things up. He shook up Washington. But you still saw who this guy was. You still heard the words coming out of his mouth. And back then he was not very smart. Today, I mean, literally, I'm not kidding. Every time I hear this dude talk, every single time, I just picture a 7-year-old up in front of class reading his report. And it just so, it's beneath us. This guy is beneath us. And the fact that he is as close as he is to the presidency of the United States makes me sick to my stomach. But Joe Biden had a response to his video. And I like what the Biden campaign is doing here. They are responding a lot to Donald Trump, which I know drives him insane. But let's take a look real quick at his response.
For America.
Is this on his official account? Wow. A unified Reich? That's Hitler's language. That's not America's. He cares about holding on to power. I care about you.
Okay, so I'll certainly admit that, you know, it's not like they caught Joe Biden in a room, happened to be looking at it, and they were recording it. We all know that. There's acting there, and, you know, probably may or may not have been his idea. But at the end of the day, you know, the fact that they come up with these ideas and they say, Mr. President, I think this would be a good idea for you to do. And he looks at it and goes, yeah, I do too. I do like the approach. I like the approach of just basically hitting Donald Trump where it hurts him the most. And that's his ego. His ego is so fragile and so it's just, he has a very hard time being laughed at. And, you know, he's been for so long used to people scared of him. And there are people still scared of him. And that's why I still believe that he feels comfortable still in this role, because there's so many people kissing his ass, and they're doing it more so now in a manner that is just, I don't know. It's way beneath me as a man. I just could not stoop to the level of pretending, because they are all pretending. They don't like this guy. They don't think he's smart. They don't think he's great for the country, but they need his voters, and his voters are very, very gullible people. So when you are not only defending the king, but you're doing it in a way that sounds like you're ready to go to battle with these libtards and these Democrats, it jacks these people up. And make no mistake about it, Donald Trump speaking at the NRA last week, Donald Trump is still mentioning that they're coming after your guns. You know, all this language that they do, there is absolutely no question in my mind, the back of the blue, even though they only back the blue when it's against the people they don't like. But when it's against them, they can't stand the blue. The blue can go fuck itself. But make no mistake, is when they keep putting this language out there that they're coming after your guns. And, you know, you've heard enough MAGA people with the response, I dare them to come after my guns. Wait till you see what happens when you come on my, you know, all that dumb shit. And the language of back the blue, they're basically trying to form an army of people that if things do get out of hand, that they will take action. Stand back and stand by is not just a little quip that Donald Trump came up with for the Proud Boys that time. And they attempted it the first time, and they've learned from their mistakes. And they will look back and go, oh, we're going to do it differently this time. And this time, I promise you, we will succeed. And you're not going to like what happens to you. And they are really getting into the heads of these very gullible and simple people, whether it is, you know, just a regular Joe who has his guns and he has really no life other than a gentleman that is trolling liberals and making them think that somebody like me and somebody like Lana are the mortal enemy that are out to destroy this country, which is, of course, again, absolutely ridiculous. They are forming their army with very impressionable police officers too. And believe me, there are more of them out there than you think. I know a few police officers that I believe, you know, have pretty strong feelings about Donald Trump and MAGA. And I think they're preparing them for some sort of, we used the term before, civil war. And I think that they really, truly believe that this could happen. And, you know, we are probably as close to a civil war happening as any time in our history, except for, of course, when the first Civil War happened. Now, when I say we're as close, 10, 15%, but that's a big number compared to really a 0% chance at one point in this country. I mean, you know, actually, I shouldn't say zero. I mean, there's always been strife and there's always been bad things that have happened in this country. But I think a lot of the marginalized groups were not looking for war. They were just looking for fairness. And this MAGA faction is looking for war, but it's under the guise of phony fairness, or it's under the guise of things that are just not true, that are just not happening. You cannot tell me that decades of terrible things have happened to marginalized communities in this country. It is clear there are no antidotes here. There are thousands of different examples that we can give, but they like to pick and choose antidotes. Like, you know, I was saying last week, when we talk about Laken Riley, you can ask a MAGA and bring that name up and they'll go, yeah, that's illegal, came in and killed her. And they act like this is happening all over the place. And then you ask them for another name and they cannot name another name. They can only name Laken Riley because she's the one antidote that they can pull out and say, see, I told you this was happening, when it really is not happening. It's a terrible thing that happened to that young lady. And there's absolutely nobody. There's not a Democrat or a liberal, whatever the fuck you want to call. None of them are going, who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter. We should still let them in, and we should still let it's crazy to me that there's just the language that goes on around this country and how easily suckered and duped people are into believing this. But I don't know. You know, we have 7 months, we're 7 months, 6 months away from the election. And, you know, we see polls back and forth. Some of them are scary. Some of them are better. You know, but I've said before, about the polls, we've talked about this numerous times, that there's so many polls that we have looked at over the last, since really 2016. And there have been a lot of polls that have scared the shit out of Democrats. But when the results come in, every single time, Democrats are like, holy shit, did you see what happened? Not only did we just win by 15 points, won by 12 points. We won in red states. We're winning all over the place. We're barely losing the House when we should have historically got blown out and held on to the Senate. It almost never happens. But that's why I've said before, I think, we all need to get to a point where we start to say, I don't really give a fuck about the polls because they seem to have been wrong every time. Now, that may be perceived as putting your guard down. That does not mean we're putting our guard down. It still means that there is work to do. There is going to be a very close election coming up. And, I think everybody just needs to do their part to understand. I'm just having this conversation with my brother last night is, we have so many different factions out there talking politics now. I mean, we're talking about people who really never talked about politics in their life. And, now we have so many different voices, so many different people talking. I mean, you have hundreds, thousands of podcasts and YouTube shows like this one, and people get confused. They're like, God damn, I hear so many different opinions. I don't know what to believe. And I could see and understand every once in a while why it could get confusing. But, some of the things that come up, it's really logistical. All you really have to do is just kind of put 2 and 2 together on a lot of this stuff, and you can figure it out. Google is a great tool. Google will tell everybody exactly what's going on. Some of it is opinion, but you can read in black and white specific things that you want to look up. I had somebody did not want to agree with me the other day when I told them the United States had the #1 economy in the world right now. And they're like, no, they don't. No, they don't. I said, they do. They're like, no. I said, no. They started getting into, so I said, this is, listen, we can argue about opinion, but this is a fact. You could just go clearly look this up yourself. We absolutely have the #1 economy in the world right now. Are we perfect and where we want to be? No, but we definitely have the #1 economy in the world. So normally we go about an hour and a half. I'm here by myself tonight, so I'm not going to go an hour and a half. I got a couple more clips that I want to play. One is a little older, but I had to play this. I'm sure all of you have seen Jasmine Crokett last week with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She got into it with AOC as well. I'm talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene did. And this was after a lot of them had come back from Donald Trump's trial. So now the story, and I'm confused by this one because I thought Donald Trump was in love with Marjorie Taylor Greene, but apparently she's not been invited yet to any of these pre or post game press conferences at his trial. But there were several of the House members there that morning, and everybody had to stay a little bit later because they weren't there to vote. They weren't there to do what it is they were supposed to do, which is work and do their job. I mean, imagine being at your job and saying, oh, I got a buddy down the street and he's he's found liable for rape and he stole classified documents and he did all kinds of terrible shit, but I'm going to go stand in the front of the courtroom. I'll be at work when I feel like it. Something tells me you probably wouldn't be working there much longer. But it all started when Marjorie Taylor Greene started talking to AOC, Andrea Ocasio-Cortez, and they got into a little spat. No, I'm sorry. I think it started, I'll go back and look, but I think it started when Marjorie Taylor Greene called out Jasmine Crokett for having quote unquote fake eyebrows or fake eyelashes is what it was, which, you know, I understand, especially with women, you don't attack another woman's looks. And that's where AOC really got upset and said, we need to strike those words down. And Marjorie Taylor Greene kept running her mouth. In fact, I really only pulled the Jasmine Crokett clip because I cannot listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene speak. I try to avoid that as much as I possibly can. But let's play the clip. I'm sure you've seen it, but listen, this one's worth watching again. I love this woman.
For 4 minutes and 21 seconds.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Who's?
It's me.
Ms. Crokett.
And obviously, Jamie Raskin's face during this whole time is absolutely classic.
Just curious, just to better understand your ruling, if someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
What now?
What now?
Chairman, I make a motion to strike those words.
I don't think that's a part of the.
I'm trying to find clarification on what quality.
Chairman, motion to strike those words.
I had no idea what you just said.
We're not gonna do this. Look, you guys earlier literally just
you just voted to do it.
Y'all did it first, so you don't
voted to do it.
That is Representative Luna. I can't remember her. I always keep forgetting. It's 3 names. And she's another one. She was at the press conference earlier. There were rumors. I'm not, I'm just going to report the rumor, but I'm not saying it's true that that a lot of the representatives came back smelling like alcohol, that they may have been drinking, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, that's Luna in the background. She's going to act like she's going to handle this whole thing.
Order. I'm trying to get clarification.
Look at calm down. Calm down.
No, because this is what y'all do. So I'm trying to get
Ms. Crokett, you're not recognized. Ms. Crokett.
I can't hear you with your yelling.
Don't want
calm
me
down.
No,
can you please calm down?
Don't tell me to
Very
calm down because y'all talk noise and then
You're out of control.
Because if I
can we
come
send
and talk
outside to
shit
take a
about
break
her,
for 5
y'all
minutes?
gonna have a problem.
We got to rewind real quick. Watch if you could see in the middle a little bit there, down in the very front row, you will see Lauren Boebert, and she does something that you do in the church, but Lauren Boebert does, of course, a very Lauren Boebert thing.
Control.
Because if I
Chairman,
come and talk shit about her, y'all gonna have a problem.
For me, I thought the cross, then I think that's what she was attempting, was supposed to go from the head down to basically your sternum and then cross your shoulders, but she crossed her shoulders 3 times. She's another clown and a fool, but somehow stayed out of this, except for later, I guess she came in and said, we all need to just get along kind of thing. And everybody's like, shut the fuck up.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, chair, okay. Order. Chair now recognize.
Okay, so there's been a lot of comments on this. Of course, you go through Twitter and you see the word ghetto a million times. You see another woman of non-color tell a woman of color to calm down and to, I don't understand, all that stuff. And it is condescending. And there are racial tones to that. There's absolutely no question in my mind. I'm not saying it because if I really did not believe that there were some sort of racial tones, especially with Marjorie Taylor Greene, you're not going to convince me that when she tells her about her fake eyelashes and these women are telling her to calm down, and telling her how she's acting. I sent a message to Lana about this a little bit, and I was saying, I'm glad that Jasmine did her thing. And because I think I've talked to Lana about this before, and she can correct me if I'm mistaken on this, but there are a lot of Black women and men who sometimes feel like they have to temper themselves because they don't want to be seen as the angry Black man or angry Black woman, when of course a guy like Donald Trump can start screaming and acting the fool anytime he wants to, or anybody else that really is a white male. If they do it, it's cool. Or even white women, they can do it, but if a black person does it, there are parts of people going, oh, there's another black person out of control. And I'm sure they don't use the term black person, but I say this because I truly believe it. It's not something I'm saying to pander. I'm not saying it, but I think a lot of people out there, whether you're of color or you're not of color, you understand what I'm saying. You understand sometimes in your gut, what this is about. And my dad always used to tell me, if your conscience and what's in your head and in your gut, every time that little voice talks, it's always right. Pretty much always, every time it is right. So when you have that little gut feeling, when you feel like somebody's doing you wrong or somebody's talking about you or something like that is happening, unless you're schizophrenic, but if you have that little just voice in your head or you have that little thing, most of the time it's right. So, and I think I'm right on this one too. Again, I'd be happy to look at any comments. If you want to comment down below, please do that. Please, I'd also like for you to like and subscribe to this show. If you don't, I know it's harder to ask for everybody to like and subscribe without the great Lana Quest here, but hey, give me a break here. And, again, if you have any questions, you have any comments, we'd love to see it. Okay, I'm going to wrap up the show today. This is an old clip, but I saw this the other day and I wanted to play. It's a couple minutes long, but I think every 2 minutes of it is 2.5 minutes, whatever it is worth listening to. I have not seen this clip before, so it's new to me. I don't know if anybody else has seen this out there, but the reason why I want to play this clip is because there was a commencement speech that got a lot of attention last week. Actually, a couple, Jerry Seinfeld's and Harrison Butker, the kicker of the Kansas City Chiefs, where, I hear some people and they leave a lot of the speech out to defend him. They're like, some people are like, what's the matter with what he said with women? What's he say? But, it was more than that. He went after President Biden. He went after the gay community. It was just, and again, I want to make something clear because we did a clip on this last week and I get a lot of comments, from the angry MAGA people who say he has a right to say whatever he wants to. And I want to make clear that I agree with you. He has the right to say whatever he wants to. Nobody's arguing with that. I'm not arguing with that. But guess what? I have the right to respond to what he said. Just like every other American, we can all respond to something people don't like. And, Jon Stewart is back on the Daily Show. And so far, I mean, I've enjoyed when he's on there, but I'm still waiting for him to hit me with that Jon Stewart type segment that I've always seen, that I've loved him for. And I'm not saying any of his segments were bad. I'm just saying I haven't seen the one that, I just go, this is classic Jon Stewart. But there was one last night and you really need to watch it. When I say last night, it was on Monday, the 20th of May. Excuse me. But he was saying a lot of things I have said on this show a million times, is that people keep acting like you're not allowed to say anything, but you clearly are. There are so many outlets for you to say whatever you want. In fact, he played example after example after example of them originally saying, we're not allowed to say this anymore. And then months later, they're saying those exact words they said you're not allowed to say, and they're saying it on national TV. So, this is bullshit that I don't want to hear, but I want to play this clip. This is the governor of Illinois at a commencement speech, J.B. Pritzker. And obviously, because of all the talk everybody has had with these commencement speeches, this is one I saw. And man, I really, 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 really enjoyed this. And I hope you do too.
Spot an idiot. Look for the person who is cruel. Let me explain. When we see someone who doesn't look like us, or sound like us, or act like us, or love like us, or live like us, the first thought that crosses almost everyone's brain is rooted in either fear or judgment, or both. That's evolution. We survived as a species by being suspicious of things that we aren't familiar with. In order to be kind, we have to shut down that animal instinct and force our brain to travel a different pathway. Empathy and compassion are evolved states of being. They require the mental capacity to step past our most primal urges. This may be a surprising assessment because somewhere along the way in the last few years, our society has come to believe that weaponized cruelty is part of some well-thought-out master plan. Cruelty is seen by some as an adroit cudgel to gain power. Empathy and kindness are considered weak. Many important people look at the vulnerable only as rungs on a ladder to the top. I'm here to tell you that when someone's path through this world is marked with acts of cruelty, they have failed the first test of an advanced society. They never forced their animal brain to evolve past its first instinct. They never forged new mental pathways to overcome their own instinctual fears. And so, their thinking and problem solving will lack the imagination and creativity that the kindest people have in spades. Over my many years in politics and business, I have found one thing to be universally true. The kindest person in the room is often the smartest.
Boy, I'll tell you, that really hit with me. I thought that was so great. And, you know, sometimes I even look at speeches like that, I get jealous. I'm like, those are exact words that I think, but the way he puts it and the way he delivered it was just so great and so phenomenal. You know, I also liken this too a lot to what's going on in this country with men. And they always talk about men in this country, and they're talking about, there's a problem with men in this country because they're not men anymore. And I think this is what he was talking about, that there is this weaponized sort of idea of using mean and terrible language as some sort of mark that makes you manly, or it makes you, you know, it makes you like there's a big plan here for men just to act like an asshole. And, you know, I personally believe that it's really the other way around. If you want to be a man, that you stand up for people in marginalized communities, or you stand up for people who need standing up for, and you don't put them down for who they are. You don't put them down because they're not like you or they don't sound like you. You know, I remember in high school, you know, there was, you know, you always have these factions of, you know, the cool people, the jocks, all that stuff. Well, you know, in junior high school, I remember I was just kind of like I was a guy that had a couple friends here and there. But once I got to high school, I really started to, you know, quote unquote, if you want to call it, get popular. You know, I was funny. I was just going around. I was talking to everybody. I was having a good time, and I got real popular in high school. But I do remember the entire time that, you know, I'm not going to just treat anybody any differently because now the, again, quote unquote, popular kids were talking to me. I was going to, you know, still just talk and act natural and normal to everybody. The only way I would not act a certain way to you that is on a negative side is if you're just an asshole of a human being. And I don't know why this is so difficult for so many people to understand that, you know, there's two really types of people in this world. It's not black, white. It's not Democrat, Republican. It's not any of that shit. It's cool people and it's assholes. And you know who the fucking assholes are. We all know who the assholes are, and we know who the cool people are. Now, are there times where the cool people can kind of be assholes? Absolutely. Are there times when the assholes can be cool? Maybe every once in a while. But when we're talking about the scale here, the scale of the cool person being the asshole every once in a while and the asshole being the cool person every once in a while doesn't match. You know, if you're the cool person that could be an asshole every once in a while, because I think we all have our moments, but you know, at the end of the day, we know who the cool people are. We know who the assholes are. And I hope everybody that's watching this is the cool person. I hope all the cool people get together in November, vote for Joe Biden, because he has done a fantastic job. I'm tired of arguing with people about how Joe Biden doesn't know where he's at. Joe Biden is ineffective, that he has not done a good job, and that the reason why inflation is high is because Joe Biden Biden is president, even though you can ask them, give me the examples of why the inflation is high because Joe Biden is president, and they can come up with absolutely zero. And just like they can come up with absolutely zero policies of Donald Trump or anything else, the answers that you get as to why you like Donald Trump's because he's hilarious or some dumb shit like that, or he trolls libtards. So anyway, I went almost an hour by myself, which I'm actually proud of myself, but it is time to get into game mode. The Boston Celtics play game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals tonight against the Indiana Pacers. I know you guys don't give a fuck about this, but I do. They played last year in the Eastern Conference Finals. They were down 0-3. They tied it up at 3. Game 7 was in Boston. I got so excited. I flew up there and went to game 7. They got blown out pretty much in game 7. Very disappointing, very heartbreaking. So if anybody's out there, whether you watch the game or not, just please send me some positive vibes, because I am very passionate about my sports teams, very. And none of my teams have won a championship since 2008. We are now going on 16 years. So I kind of need this, if you guys don't mind. Don't be an asshole. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And we will be back on Tuesday of next week live. The only reason why, again, I'm recording this show tonight is because the Celtics game's on, but no more Tuesday games for the Celtics from this point out. So we will be live every Tuesday. You can also catch Lana Quest on her show, on The Quest Show. On Thursday nights, she'll either pop in live or she'll do a recorded show. Sometimes she doesn't have the chance to do it. She's a very, very busy woman, has a great family, so she spends a lot of time with them as well. But thank you guys for watching this, and we will talk to you guys again soon.